All right, next we're going to cover insurance, and we won't spend too much time here. We'll cover this briefly. So you want to think about, you worked really hard to get where you are now, and insurance is one way to protect how hard you worked and to protect your financial picture after you worked so hard to reach this point. As you know, because we talked about this earlier, emergency funds are one way to protect that, and insurance is another piece. So you want to think about a few main types of insurance: health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, and malpractice insurance. Often, if you work for a legal employer, malpractice insurance will be covered, so you won't get too much into that. You just want to make sure you understand the malpractice insurance coverage that you have. Like with any insurance, what risks are you protecting against with that policy? And do you feel comfortable that when you put together the picture of risk reduced by insurance and reduced in other places, for example, emergency fund, do you feel comfortable with the way the complete picture looks for you? So we won't get into that too much, just make sure that you understand what you have in place there. Health insurance, similar. If you are working for an employer, often you're going to choose the health insurance offered, and you just want to make sure, what is it that is being offered? Sometimes there are multiple plans that you can choose from, and how do you best align that with your needs and understand the cost of that? Sometimes you may be, if you have a partner, it may be that you go with the health insurance policy from one of your employers and not the other. It may be because the coverage is better, the cost is better, or both. But sometimes, because insurance can be expensive, if you decline coverage with one employer, the employer that is not providing you insurance coverage sometimes will even give you a credit for not electing to take coverage with them because they have cost savings there as well. So just something to be aware of. Disability insurance and life insurance, we can think of a bit similarly. So often you will have at least some level of disability insurance through your work that every employee who works there gets. Sometimes you have some disability benefits in your state as well. But you want to look at what your work offers and understand what situations would be covered. You also have the option to get your own disability insurance policy. And not surprisingly, if you're younger and relatively healthy, that tends to be less expensive to lock in when you're younger. So one thing to look for is, if you have your own policy, then of course, you know what you have, you can customize it to what works for you, and it is portable. So that means if you leave your employer, you can take that policy, comes with you, right? Versus something that's tied to that particular employer, the employer offered policy. You also want to think about, some policies are what you call own occupation and some are not. Like if you get your private policy, it may be own occupation. Own occupation means, for example, it may say, if you have a disability or if you suffer an injury, and as a result of that, you are unable to practice law, they will pay out. That's different than a policy that says, if you were unable to work, as in any occupation at any capacity, you are covered. So if you have a situation where you were unable to practice law, but you are still able to perform some other job, some policies will pay you, some will not. So pay attention to that disability insurance policy, it's called, and in what situations will you be paid, and are you comfortable with that result? And then of course, if you get your own policy, you'll have some control over the amount, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Life insurance is similar. Sometimes you will have life insurance provided for free, or you'll have the option to increase the amount of life insurance policy coverage through your employer. Same thing, if you get your own private policy, it's not tied to your employer, has nothing to do with that, it's portable. And you will have some control over choosing the amount. You may not have full control over choosing the amount if you choose the one that's through your employer. And again, you could have both. You may craft between the two of them coverage that works for you. So you want to consider, with both disability insurance, both disability and life insurance, what is it that you actually need? In other words, remember with the emergency fund, we said, okay, if there's an emergency, so for example, I unexpectedly lose my job, what is the amount of income that I need to replace, right? As we've been saying throughout here, what is the goal here? You want to do the same with your disability insurance policy, your life insurance policy. If something were to happen to me, that I needed payout under one of these policies, right? What would happen? So for example, if I couldn't work, what expenses would I need to replace? How much income would I want coming in, right? If something were to happen to me, if I were to pass away and there was a payout under a life insurance policy, what do I need that to do for me? Are there other people in my family I need to be taken care of, right? So it's really designed to replace some amount of money that's coming in, and you want to make some connection between what you need to replace or what you need that money to do for you, right, and the amount that you choose. It can often seem like we're sort of arbitrarily choosing an amount, but you actually want it to connect to something, and that may change over time, right? It may be at some point that you build up a large enough amount of assets that are earning you money, for example, investments, which we'll talk about. Maybe you're earning enough in investments that if your job went away or you're unable to do your job, you would still have enough money coming in to live off of, right? That changes the need for the insurance policy. So you just want to think about tying it to the need and tying it to your goal. And then the other thing to pay attention to here is there are people that sell these things, right? There are people that sell disability insurance. There are people that sell life insurance. There are all these different products, and you just want to have some awareness around someone that is an insurance professional who is selling these things may not be paying attention to factors like what is the right amount for you that you need, right? They may sell you an interesting product that has a lot of supposed benefits, but that doesn't fit you well. So you just want to have, that general buyer beware concept when you're thinking about someone who is selling you something, trying to help you pick, who is also trying to help you pick what is the best fit for you, right? So you pick what is the best fit for you, and apply that filter, particularly when you're working with an advisor who either sells whatever that product is, or who will get some sort of benefit or percentage from paying that. And then, of course, you may decide along the way that you want to have other insurance in place. For example, maybe you want to have an umbrella policy, of course, automobile insurance and those sorts of things. You may have an umbrella policy as well that sits on top of something like your malpractice or your automobile, right? And provides extra coverage beyond those limits. So you can talk to an insurance professional, again, beware depending upon whether or not they're selling those products, to help you understand and start to crunch numbers on what amount of coverage would I need in different situations to really protect this financial life that I've set up for myself. But when you do that, right, and we'll talk about financial professionals who can help with this later on, the resources for you. When you do that, when you set that up, it's like that emergency fund where it really gives you huge peace of mind that when you know that you've protected what you've worked so hard to obtain.